Picture a glass of water sitting completely still on a table. You can see straight through it. Every detail at the bottom, sharp, clear, undisturbed. Now someone walks past and bumps the table. The water shakes, it swirls, it clouds, and for a moment you cannot see anything through it. Not the bottom, not the truth, just chaos. That glass of water is your mind every single morning. And the person bumping the table is not your boss. It is not the news. It is not the difficult person in your life. The person bumping the table is you. The moment you reach for your phone, before you have had a single breath of quiet, before your mind has had one moment to settle, before you have decided deliberately and consciously who you are going to be today. Most people hand their power away before breakfast. They do not realize it is happening. They wake up and within 60 seconds they have flooded their consciousness with other people's urgency, other people's opinions, other people's anxiety. And by the time they realize what happened, the day already owns them. They are reactive before they have been intentional. They are responding before they have chosen. The Stoics had a word for the opposite of this. They called it proheresis, the faculty of choice, the part of you that can pause before the impulse becomes the action. That can decide before the reaction takes over. That can author the day instead of merely surviving it. That faculty is yours, it has always been yours, but it requires protection. It requires a morning practice that most people never build because no one ever told them it was possible. Today we are going to build it together. Part 1. Your mind is either your weapon or your prison. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He was not describing an optimistic outlook. He was describing a structural reality about how a trained mind operates differently from an untrained one when difficulty arrives. An untrained mind is reactive by default. Something happens, and the response is immediate and automatic. It is shaped by fear, by pride, by the accumulated emotional residue of everything that has happened before. The reaction is not chosen, it simply fires. A trained mind has something the untrained mind does not: a pause. A space between what arrives and what gets sent back. And in that space, something genuinely important happens. The part of you that reasons gets to weigh in before the part of you that reacts has already taken over. That pause is not weakness, it is the opposite of weakness. It is the single most sophisticated thing a human being can do under pressure. And it is what most people around you will never develop because they have never been shown how. The world is designed to provoke reaction. Every notification, every headline, every carefully worded message designed to get under your skin. All of it calibrated to produce an immediate emotional response. Because a reactive person is a predictable person. A predictable person is a manageable person. The moment you stop reacting automatically, you stop being manageable. You become something different, something that cannot be easily steered by whoever most recently pushed a button. And that shift, from reactive to deliberate, is the foundation of everything the Stoics spent their lives building. Your mind will be your weapon or your prison. That is not a motivational phrase. It is a description of a real choice you make every morning before the day has had a chance to make it for you. Part 2. The power of deliberate silence. There is a particular kind of silence that unsettles people far more than any loud response ever could. Not the silence of someone who has nothing to say. Not the silence of someone who is hurt and withdrawing. The silence of someone who has heard everything and chosen, deliberately and without apology, not to respond to what does not deserve a response. This silence is one of the most powerful tools available to you, and almost no one uses it deliberately. When someone provokes you, whether through criticism or dismissal, or the subtle manipulation of someone who has learned exactly which words will get a reaction, they are making an implicit offer. The offer is, give me your energy, give me your emotional attention. Let what I just said or did become the thing that now determines how you feel and what you do next. Most people accept that offer automatically. The provocation arrives and the response fires, sometimes loudly, sometimes through the quiet seething of someone who is stewing but will not say so. Either way, the energy has been given, the power has shifted. Epictetus taught that nothing has power over you without your consent. That is not a passive observation. It is a call to active, deliberate practice. The practice of withholding consent from the things that do not deserve your reaction. Silence in this sense is not absence. It is presence of a very particular kind. The presence of someone who is completely composed, who has heard what was said and has decided from a position of genuine security, rather than suppressed reaction, that it does not require the honor of a response. That composure cannot be manipulated. You cannot steer someone who is not taking the bait. You cannot destabilize someone whose stability does not depend on your approval or your provocation producing its intended effect. Your silence is a shield, not because it hides you, because it reveals that there is nothing to hit. Part 3. Memento mori. The clarity that mortality produces. The Stoics practiced something they called memento mori, the deliberate daily remembrance that you are going to die, that the time available to you is finite, that the morning you are in right now will never come back. This is not morbidity. It is the most clarifying practice available to a human mind, because most of the things that feel urgent are not important, and most of the things that are genuinely important do not feel urgent. The urgent things press. They demand. They crowd out the quiet, significant things that require deliberate attention rather than automatic response. Memento mori reverses that. When you hold, even for a moment, each morning, the honest recognition that your time is limited and that this specific day is genuinely irreplaceable, the urgent things lose their tyranny. The grudge you have been carrying starts to look like an expensive way to spend a day that cannot be reclaimed. The conversation you have been postponing starts to look necessary rather than optional. The version of your life you have been waiting to begin starts to look like something you cannot keep putting off. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." That instruction, taken seriously, is one of the most practical tools for redirecting your attention that has ever been written, not toward fear, toward what actually matters, toward the people and the work and the choices that will still seem significant when you look back at this period of your life from a distance. You are not immortal, neither is today. Use both accordingly. Part 4. Your comfort zone is not safety, it is stagnation. Here is a truth that is uncomfortable precisely because it is accurate. The place that feels like safety is often the place where growth has stopped, where the life you could be building is being traded for the life that requires nothing new from you, where the future is being sacrificed to protect a version of the present that is comfortable but not alive. The Stoics called this the failure to live according to nature, not nature in the sense of forests and rivers, nature in the sense of what a human being is actually for, which is not to remain unchanged, not to avoid difficulty, not to optimize relentlessly for ease, but to grow, to meet the next version of what you are capable of through the experience of what challenges you. Every time you choose the comfortable option over the one that would require more from you, something happens that is almost invisible in the moment. You practice avoidance, and avoidance practiced consistently does not stay neutral. It compounds. Each avoided difficulty makes the next one feel larger. Each comfortable retreat makes the edges of your life slightly smaller, until the space you are willing to occupy has shrunk considerably from what it once was. And the deepest cost is not the missed opportunity. It is the relationship you have with yourself, the quiet accumulating awareness that you have been choosing smallness when you were capable of more. Starting over is not failure. Starting over is the honest acknowledgement that you have outgrown something that no longer fits, that the path you were on was someone else's idea of your life or an earlier version of your own, and that the courage to step off it towards something that actually reflects who you are now and who you are capable of becoming is the most intelligent thing available to you. Part 5. The crossroads every morning. Every morning you stand at a fork. One path leads to reaction, to waking up and letting the first stimulus you encounter determine the tone of everything that follows, to living inside the day's agenda rather than your own, to being, as Marcus Aurelius put it, a leaf blown by every wind rather than someone walking in a deliberate direction. The other path leads to intention, to the brief, quiet practice of deciding who you are before the day has had a chance to decide for you, to the few minutes of stillness where the water settles and you can see clearly before the clarity is disturbed. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. This is not a philosophical concept, it is a neurological reality. There is always a gap, however small, between what arrives and what gets sent back. The question is whether you have learned to inhabit that gap, whether you have practiced it enough that it is available to you under pressure, whether the version of you that reasons gets to speak before the version of you that reacts has already acted. The Stoics spent their lives widening that gap through practice, through the morning ritual of reflection before the day began, through the evening practice of reviewing what happened and whether they had responded from their values or from their impulses, through the sustained daily discipline of choosing, one moment at a time, which version of themselves would show up. That practice begins with 4 words, not as a phrase to memorize, as a decision made fresh each morning. I choose my response, not my circumstances, not how the day unfolds, not whether people around me cooperate or disappoint me. My response, the one domain that has always been mine, the one thing that no circumstance, no person, no amount of external pressure can take without my consent. That choice made deliberately each morning before the noise begins is the entire practice. Everything else follows from it or it does not. Part 6. Stop explaining your worth. Here is something the Stoics understood about human dignity that very few people put into daily practice. You do not owe anyone an explanation of your value, not to the people who question your decisions, not to the critics who have decided what you are capable of before they have seen what you are building, not to the people in your life who seem most comfortable when you are uncertain about yourself, because your uncertainty makes them feel less responsible for closing their own gaps. Every time you find yourself in the middle of a lengthy defense of a choice you have already made, a path you are already walking, a version of yourself you are already becoming, ask yourself one question. Who asked for this explanation? Because often the answer is no one. The explanation is being offered to a court that was never actually in session, to a verdict that exists only in your own anxiety about what other people might be thinking. And in offering it, you are doing something that undermines the very confidence you are trying to project. You are suggesting, through the act of explaining, that the thing you are explaining requires defense, that it might not be strong enough to stand without your help. Genuine strength does not explain itself constantly. It demonstrates itself through the quality of the work, through the consistency of the behavior, through the steadiness of someone who is not destabilized by questions because they are not deriving their stability from other people's assessments. Your silence about your worth is not insecurity. It is the highest form of confidence available, the confidence of someone who knows what they bring and has no need to advertise it to people who are not paying close enough attention to notice on their own. Closing. You are the author of your day, or you are its victim, not metaphorically, literally. The quality of your life is shaped more than by any external circumstance, by the quality of the decisions you make in the space between what happens to you and what you do about it. The water in the glass will be bumped every morning by messages and memories and obligations and the sheer weight of everything that needs to be navigated. You cannot prevent the bump, but you can ensure that before the bump arrives, the water has had time to settle, that you have had one moment of genuine quiet in which the person you actually want to be has been given a chance to show up before the day has made its demands. That moment is the practice, the silence before the noise, the question before the reaction, the choice before the default takes over. Marcus Aurelius sat with that practice every morning as the most powerful person in the world. Epictetus practiced it with nothing, not freedom, not possessions, not the basic rights most people take for granted. Both of them return to the same fundamental understanding. The inner life is the only territory that is truly yours, and how you tend it determines everything else. Tomorrow morning, before you reach for the phone, before the day has made a single claim on your attention, take one breath, ask one question. Who do I want to be today? Then live in the direction of that answer, imperfectly, consistently, one small choice at a time. That is not inspiration, that is the practice. And the practice, repeated across enough ordinary mornings, Build something that the reactive life never can, a life that was actually yours. If this video reached something real in you, leave a comment below. Write one sentence. The choice you are committing to make tomorrow morning, not for me, for yourself, because naming it out loud is the first act of ownership. Subscribe to Stoic Journal and turn on the bell. Every week, content like this for people who are serious about building from the inside out. Until next time. Still the water. Own the day. Choose your response.